Scott, about a decade ago, brought me, after we had written Sinister, he brought me Joe Hill's The Black Phone, which is one of his favorite stories. And I loved it, but it just wasn't right for us at the time. It just wasn't, there was a whole lot that needed to be added. It was a very small, compact story. We saw that it could be a movie, but it needed a lot of building out, and we didn't know exactly how to do that yet. And then fast forward years later, Scott and I are having a night where we're just talking about things, and he pitches to me the idea of doing a film about his childhood, about doing something about the resiliency of youth and how, how we as children kind of deal with some really awful things, and that forges us into who we are as adults, and asked me if I'd wanted to work on something like that. And I was like, of course I would. And then through that conversation, the Black Phone came up, and we were like, oh, what if we took this concept of your childhood and put it onto the Black Phone? That would fill in all the blanks that we needed, and it just seemed like a no-brainer. We wanted to tell a story that was about the resiliency of youth, meaning that Finney's childhood had to not be great. There had to be a lot of stuff, being picked on by bullies, having a drunken, abusive father, not a lot of hope in his life, but he still has hope. So why does he still have hope? Well, we created this relationship with him and his sister that is this very loving, affectionate relationship of two kids coming up in a bad home. They're single father. He's an alcoholic. He's working a lot. How do these kids cope? And how they cope is by being there for each other. The grabber is kind of a monolith in the film. We're not entirely sure who he is, where he comes from, why entirely he's doing what he's doing. Although Scott and I bury a lot of that in the subtext. If you dig in and you really kind of think it through, you get who this guy is and where he came from and the idea of the things that happened to him in his own childhood that clearly has forged who he is now. But the grabber is really just kind of this nightmarish guy who we never really get to see clearly. He's just the monster. And we wanted him to be the monster both in person that we would think about of him in the papers, how we would think about him in the legends. Scott has a very singular mind when he's shooting. He very much is in tune with the scene in a way that I don't see out of a lot of folks. I've worked with other directors, I've worked with a lot of people, and he looks at each scene and he's looking for what's missing and looking for how pieces work together. And he has a very, very visual understanding of storytelling and a very visual mind. Like, he creates these incredibly bizarre, fantastic, psychedelic landscapes in his imagination that very much he sees and knows how to bring to life. And in a very tactile way. He wants you to feel like you could reach through the screen and touch the scene there.